Hello everybody, here we are back in my workshop. My name's Colwin Way. So today we're moving on. We're going to be doing another Christmas heirloom gift, decoration, whatever you want to call it really. Got Finn behind the camera today. So we know Finn, well you know Finn from old, he's an old hat at this. He'll be asking me your questions, so relay them through him. Nativity scene, that's where we are today. Now nativity figures, it's up to you to build the scene, but Finn's just going to bring the camera in nice and close. We're going to have a look at this one here, Finn. So that's I guess all the characters to the scene that we're going to do. These are particularly small ones because these are to decorate the carousel that we've already done. So the 3-tier carousel, getting really close actually. So if we were going to build a carousel like we've done a few weeks ago, so Christmas pyramid, you can do miniature versions and to decorate that. Remember I was saying on the carousel, whether you go single tier, double tier, 3-tier, 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to do, that you alternate scenes between a nativity scene and a woodland scene. So there's your nativity scene. Your woodland scenes, I guess, are going to include things like deer and pigs and all that sort of stuff, and Christmas trees or snowmen maybe even. So that's our smaller one. I've designed that one to go on to, like I say, my 3-tier pyramid, but let me just show you some bigger ones. I'm going to refer to these big ones a little bit more often purely because you'll be able to see them. So I've done some slightly bigger for you this morning. So we've got a couple of variations here. So I'm just going to start with, just to show you the wise men. Okay, the variations on the same theme really. You can see what I mean by variations on the same theme. We have a similar body shape on all of them, but where I've sanded makes the difference. So a single tiny little sanded area on the top of this one here with a single head, and then we've got the double sanding here, so one sand flat on the top and then a flat sanding down the bottom there, and again going back to a single sanding here, but a little bit larger than the first one, and the cape is sort of more rounded, where this one's sort of splayed out more. So there's a good variation there. Obviously colours, not just in the hat and the rose, but obviously skin colour you can change around to suit the actual incense, gold, frankincense and myrrh casks are going to be whatever shape you want to turn them to. Same with the headwear, whatever shape you want to turn them to. So there's the wise men. Obviously one's there wearing a stick. He's lost a hand at the moment, so I've got to put a hand in his gift back. But that was borrowed from something else, I can't remember what. A couple of Marys. Okay, whatever you go for. I've started to go with this sort of shape. Now that looks a little bit too angel-like for me, so I've gone to that one. Not my designs. I'm not going to pretend to have made these designs up. These are all from my usual source of inspiration, all from the Ore Mountain area, the Erzberg region of Germany, where there are makers have been making these sort of styles and shapes for ages. So they're the ones that get all the praise for these things. And then when it comes to making, let me just show you another Mary, because that's a finished one. That was one of the miniature ones. So that's a finished version. Look, you've got the hands there. There's the little baby Jesus there with the manger. And a Joseph we haven't showed you. There's the Joseph. Obviously different scales to these, but another variation on that same sort of theme as we're doing with the wise men here. So all very, very basic turning again. At first glance, no, it doesn't look that basic, but honestly, you'll see in a minute that there's not a lot to do. It's all in interpretation really, because there's no facial features to put on or anything like that. I'd absolutely steer clear of that, because you'll end up with some scary looking wise men and sheep. And talk about the sheep, there's one of them. The sheep are made from really just 3 turnings of the same shape. So we've got one turning for the body, same shape but smaller for the head, and same shape but smaller for the ears. The ears are just cut in 2. So that's a very, very easy bit of turning. If you add slightly change the shape of the body and add a couple of blunt horns, then you've got your ox as well. So you can do all sorts of things. And with this, look online, go to look at wooden nativity figures. You'll see all sorts of shapes and sizes. So let me just put the the ready-made ones down. We're going to start with one of the wise men there. So we're going to do these slightly differently. The wise men are done with a single piece of timber. So I'm going to start off with a piece of oak. So that's how our wise man starts. Now, Mary starts in a slightly different way. Mary starts with a much longer piece of timber, and this piece of timber I'm going to round to a cylinder, hold in a chuck, because what I want to be able to do is just cut this area here with a saw where these are sanded. I'm not going to, I certainly don't want to be holding this by hand whilst I'm cutting it, so I'm going to use the lathe just to hold it, use the lathe as a clamp sort of thing. So we'll show you why we do that in a moment. So there's my easy start. I think I'll do a couple of shapes for you. We're going to chill out with this one. We've got 2 sessions on it, so don't worry, we're not going to rush anything. Ask questions as you think of them, as usual, and Finley will relay them to me.
Talking of questions, we just got one before we get started from Will. He was just saying, can you recommend a compressor and painting system that's not too expensive?
So we're talking airbrush, I'm guessing now, Will?
I presume, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad you asked that, yes. I've got it all set up here. We're going to do some painting later on. Let me just unplug it a minute and we'll get it for you. Because I've got, well, this is 3 compressors in the workshop at the moment, but this one here is purely just for airbrushes. So that's my little airbrush compressor. You've heard my other compressors go. Finn, just have a swipe around. So that's the Swan Biggie there. That does all my blowing, all the air tools, all that sort of thing run through that one. But last resort, I will use it as on my airbrush. It's a bit big for that, but it works. Then I've got my discontinued, unfortunately, no more available compressor here. Basically, what that is what I'm about to show you there, but with a tank on it. Okay, so it's a similar sort of thing. And I've got up to an airbrush little regulator there, and then I run the airline from that to my airbrushes. This is what I take around to demonstrations. If I'm doing a little bit of airbrushing, this is what I go for. When I say if I do a little bit of airbrushing, if I'm spending much longer than about an hour airbrushing, then I'll go to one of the bigger ones, because this is a continual running one. So turn the machine, I've unplugged it. Turn the machine on and it runs all the time, because there's no tank to fill. It's the motor's actually generating that pressure through the airline. So that's the only difference. Comes with its own little regulator there. I set it to about 40 PSI for most of these. But anything between sort of 30 and 40 works really for these spirit stains, which we're going to use later. And then that's straight into my airbrush, because it's got its regulator already fixed. Straight into a quick release line there. I'm using the SP50. Now you can also get, that's a standalone airbrush. So this particular one's a suction feed airbrush. And we're ready to go with that. So I don't need to do much. It's nice and quiet as well. It's the other thing. It's I wouldn't say it's silent, but it's we can be talking quite normally without being interrupted by the compressor. We also do sets of 4 airbrushes together, 2 suction, 2 gravity fed, and that's in a kit. Sorry, Lily, I haven't primed you. Sorry, that little mini compressor there. If you could pop that up on screen. The SP50 airbrush, and then the set of 4 airbrushes, Spraycraft airbrushes. That'll be useful for people. I'll have that running in a minute, so you'll be able to hear how quiet it is.
While we're talking about airbrushing, one here from David, who was just saying, it was just asking you either, how do you get a white airbrush finish, or an even white airbrush finish?
White airbrush. Now, if I'm going to airbrush, if I want white through an airbrush, I go acrylic. I won't go spirit stain. If you use spirit stain, you have to go over and over and over, and then you're building up layers, and stain doesn't really work like that. Stain has to go into the timber to create the colour. Acrylics, you can build up a surface coat. So your regular airbrush paint, go with acrylics, and then little and often, you know, if you want to opaque completely sort of covering so you can't see the grain through, you'll have to do probably about 10 to 15 coats, but it's dry as it goes on. So when I say, you know, normal spraying, that would take hours and hours to do, but with airbrushing, 10 to 15 coats really is probably about, I would have said, probably about 10 minutes at the very most, so it's not too much. Alternatively, of course, then, you know, you paint off the lathe or use an aerosol of some sort. There's loads of really, really good aerosols out there now. Depending on what you want to use it for, if you want to go toy safe, look for the toy safe symbol. Harder to find in aerosols, but again, they are out there. Plastolium, I think it is, certainly Rust-Oleum, or Plasticoat, sorry, and Rust-Oleum. They're my two favourites, Rust-Oleum being a really good one. And also, I mean, I did mention a few weeks ago about the paint from Steinert's in Germany, and we posted that link before. Now that is a very, very good water-based, transparent paint that goes through an airbrush really, really well, and there's some lovely colours in that. So if Lily, if you can't find the link for that, then I'll let you have that tomorrow. We can put that back out there tomorrow. All right, Finn, for the minute. We'll get on and do some turning, I suppose. So I prepped 2 pieces of timber up. I've got a piece of oak. I've got a piece of pine. Okay, so completely different densities. One's very light, one's very soft. You can choose to either paint these when finished. If we look at one that we've got here, let's get a couple up. Okay, so those two are painted. So this is a bit of sycamore, this is a piece of maple. Those are both dyed, so there's spirit stains on those. Whereas if we look at Mary here, okay, that one there, she's got a piece of sapele for her shawl, and then just a piece of unpainted maple for the face and for the front of her tunic. Alright, so it's entirely up to you whether you go with a colour or whether you go and rely on the timber itself. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do here yet. I think for the pine we might put a colour on. We'll have a look at the oak. But above all, that's what we need. We need a hole in the end. You know, I've already told you, I know you're going to ask me what the sizes are, but the sizes, as you can see, are very much open to what you want to do. Okay, so big, small, in between, bigger, smaller, whichever. It's entirely up to you. As an example, let's measure those two in particular. So the smaller ones, if we go overall height, top of hat to floor, 75mm, 3 inches on the smaller one. On the bigger one, we've got, again, hat to floor, 125. It's about 5 inches. Alright, so quite a big difference between those. I would guess you would use, you know, the smaller ones if you're adding to something. Like I said, the carousel's got to spin. I don't want anything too heavy on it, so we've added small ones. If you're creating a scene on the mantelpiece or on a shelf, then the bigger ones are more visible. They're seen more. So that's probably where I would, you know, to use the two. These are bigger ones, just so you can see the action more, see what's happening.
Just before we get started, a question here from Brent. He was just saying, what is the difference between the Evolution Chuck and the SK114?
The SK114 is an Evolution Chuck. Evolution is a name that spans the SK100. The Evolution is referred to as the 114 is referred to as the Evolution. So it was Evolution is a range of tools, range of chucks, range of things. Evolution tool rest system is part of my sanding setup here. That's an Evolution tool post, and so on. So it's a range. SK114 is an Evolution chuck. Yes.
He follows on to say he's got a 1640 one-way lathe. What size jaws would you recommend for that?
Depends on what you're turning. So if you're into big stuff, go big jaws. If you're into small stuff, go small jaws. I suspect if you've got one of those machines, the one way, you're probably into bigger than smaller. So are you into hollow forms? Because then I would go for more gripper jaws, that sort of thing. If you're into big platters, then dovetails maybe, internal and external dovetails, so you can either hold feet to part off at the end or take off at the end, or expand into dovetailed recesses, that sort of stuff. So it really depends on what your work is, rather than the lathe that it's got to go on, you know.
And on that topic, Martin was just saying he's just purchased the AC 305 owl lathe. What chuck do you recommend for the first purchase on a tight budget?
AC 305.
305.
The first chuck SK100. Definitely. SK100 all the time on that sort of size machine. And that will take all the jaws you see me using, it'll take it. I'm messing around with what I'm gonna start off with, but I'm gonna go friction drive. Ring center. Start with, is that focused on that alright?
Come good towards you a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, ring center, that's gonna be my first friction drive. I'm gonna start with the hole on the tailstock end. Okay, and the only reason I'm doing that is I want to clean that area up. So I can rough down, clean that area up, and then turn it down to its final position. And this is going to be one of the wise men, so it's main coat. You've seen already. And let's do this one. Let's do a nice simple one. Nice simple single sanded area there. So you can see the sort of shape that we're going to do. And then all that's left is to do these areas, or these pieces. So a nice little tool rest. We've got the robust 150 here. Nice and quick. Dust extractor will be on in a minute, but I'll warn you. There's movement on the dust extractor, guys. We've been doing some piping today. Next week I'll unveil my new plumbed in system and tell you all about the bits of kit that I'm using to do that. Well, in fact, I'm using one kit. Just one investment meant that I've got all the bits I need to make my plumbed in system for my dust extractor. Here we are, and I'm plumbing into, I've got a bandsaw, lathe obviously, baler thicknesser and my bench. So I've got a fair bit of movement. Right, so let's just rough down. Every time it stops, initially, because it'll only stop for a few times, just tighten it up. There we are, that'll do for the minute. All I'm going to do now is tidy up this tailstock end. Remember, that's the end with the hole in. So, Skew Chisel just to clean up. There we are. So now we've got that loose. Now, do you know what? I think whilst we're here, rather than mess around, let's do the other bit as well. So there's my piece of oak. Let's do the bit of pine. There's a huge knot right on the bottom there. So I don't think it'll make much difference. Sometimes if, certainly on pine like this, they can be quite gummy, those knots. So it might cause problems if you were using it on a friction drive. But oh, it'll all be alright in the end, won't it? So we'll be fine. So make sure nothing's touching. Speed I'm happy with. Knock the corners away. There we are. Again, use the skew just to clean my edge up. You could use a parting tool for this. It'll be slightly more of a ragged edge, but it will work. There we are. Now, if you're going to do a bundle of wise men, then do that stage first. That saves you moving the lathe around. There we are. That knot's disappeared. Well, it's not disappeared, but the loose bit has. So we're okay there. So now we're going to flip him over. Going to change that one out, because now we've got a hole that we're going to drive. So what we're going to use for that. So if I don't have, let's use my light bulb centre.
20 minutes in.
Okay, there's the light bulb centre. And I think a single pointed centre on this end, we've already got a nice centre point to grab. Great skew chisel practice this will be. You fancy if you're not happy with your skew work, then give that a go. I'll show you in a minute. Let's get them down to diameter. And now I know that this end is nice and true, or very slightly dished. So that's going to be the bottom. So when that sits on the table, the mantle, whatever, it's going to not wobble around. It's going to be nice and level. That's that knot. Not lubricating the friction drive. I'm going to have to ease off a little bit. Right, I think we're about the size. Let's rough it out with a roughing gouge. Oh, that's not working. Plan B. Tiny little bowl gouge. That's roughed, very rough. Let's go with our skew, because we know a skew works. Tool rests high. Getting there. So you're going to ask me in a minute how we're going to clean this top up. And that's half the reason we've got one of the little 6mm hole down the bottom.
So a quick question here from Len, who's saying he has the Axminster Trade 8200 SRG on back order. He's just asking what CBM wheel should he buy along with that one?
Well, I'm not going to blame the fact that I was looking at Finley then, that got a dig. So Len, sorry, to answer your question. So I'll have to be having to be very, very, very delicate with this bit of timber. So I would personally, on mine, just over here a minute, thinner. On mine here, I've got the 180. The width of the wheel is 40, I believe. No, I've got the 32. So 1.25 is the width there. Now you can get 40s. I'm not sure whether it'll fit on that one actually. But that one's a 180 grit on there, and I find that working with my 100 grit aluminium oxide is a great combination. It really does give me the closest thing to a whetstone finish. It's a really smooth, shiny finish. So for bevel rubbing tools, that's ideal. And also very little heat builds up on that, and you get hardly any sparks as well. So I would go 180 then. There we are. That's that shape. We'll sand it in a minute when we've taken this off. So let's just get rid of that for a minute. We'll do the piece of oak, slightly different shape.
What skew were you using for that one?
What was I using, Finn?
The Colwin Way signature skews.
The Colwin Way signature skews from Crown, the cryo skews. This one was the 30mm, so the bigger of the bunch. That's a Crown cryo tool, that one. Okay, that's Lily, maybe you could put up the 3 signature skews for me, please. Okay, we're just gonna. I want to take that down to size a little bit. Again, it's a little bit fat. See what happens there. I'll come away from that piece of pine with that knot on the bottom, and that's wet. That's sat out there. That's why it wasn't driving very well. As soon as I've gone to the oak, solid. So we use the skew just to tidy up a little bit. We'll rough out this side, and this one I won't come over. I'll keep it nice and splayed. I'll make this one that sort of shape, just so we can have a look at a couple of different forms.
What do you use to clean your CBM wheel?
To clean the CBM wheel, they're little. Again, Lily, sorry, Lily, I'm making you work today. These are specifically designed for CBM wheels. They are a declogging stone, and you use them like you would a devil stick. I think, Lily, they're just described as CBM cleaning blocks. There, well, that's enough roughing, so let's go with the skew again. Much practice as possible. Nice big cut going on there. One more. That'll do us again. So there's those couple of basic forms done. So let's mount that in a slightly different way. We can take the end off and we can sand that up. So we're going to use the tailstock again in a minute, but let's just for the moment take that one out. That was a light pull drive, by the way, guys. Use a light pull drive very often to dry things. We're going to go with my step jaws, and we're going to use a painting stick. Remember, I carry a bag of painting sticks, and I use painting sticks all the time. Just 6mm dowel. Alright, dead easy to use. But we use that as a little drive.
Got a question here from Nick Clark. He was just saying, can you sharpen your signature skews on the Tormek system, given the shape of them?
Yes. Quickly pan around to the one. I won't sharpen it, but they fit in the same way. Just because of the shape, it doesn't mean to say they can't be grabbed on there. All I would say is don't set them to any of the Tormek recipes, because it doesn't work for this, because you've got an angle already. You've got an angle on the skew already. So what the Tormek book gives you won't quite work on here. That'll only work on the straight tools. So what I tend to do is set it to the existing angle that I've got already. It works a lot easier that way. But in terms of the grip, there is no issue with grip. I probably can't see in there, can I?
Just to it a little bit. Yeah, that's better.
But the grip works absolutely fine. Alright, I wouldn't change, if you're new to the skew, I wouldn't change the angle that you get from new. Keep that as is and set your jig up to suit the angle that's on there already, and that will be alright for you. A little bit of black ink on the bevel without the machine running, just scratch the surface of the bevel until you've got full coverage. Then you know you've got your bar in exactly the right position. Okay. In the new year, we're going to do a whole series of sharpening demos for wood turning, so you'll be all right. I'm basing all my stuff after Christmas on using new kit, presuming that Santa's nice to you and you get some goodies for Christmas. We're going to do some projects aimed at people that have just got a lathe. They want to do some new, some easier projects, some sharpening, how they sharpen their tools, how we're using different parts of kit like jaws of chucks, that sort of thing. It's all important for beginners, and then as the months go on, we'll go on to some trickier projects. Right, lathe speed to 0. I'm just going to take that off. Let's go with the smaller skew.
Talking about presents, any idea when the lights that you got on your lathe are coming back into stock?
Well, I thought they were due in the end of this month, but again, Lily, would you have a look for me? Sorry. Yeah, have a look. I thought they were the end of this month, as in November. So all I'm doing here, I'm using the drive from that little bit of beach down, and we're going right the way down, part off the end, and then we can start sanding. Such an easy way, without overthinking too much, of holding that bit of timber for sanding, and cleaning this end up as well. So let's do that now. I'm going to turn the extractor on. I'm going to shout answers to questions. So let's start with 100, and then we go 150, 240, 400.
Question here from George. He's just saying, He's just saying, any tips on how to centre up a tailstock with a fixed headstock on a lathe?
Yeah, I must apologise, I forgot your name, but a few weeks ago I was asked the same question and I never answered it, so we'll do that. Then remind me, I've got to do that in a minute. We'll sound this one and then we'll do it. So 400. I'm not going to colour these yet because I want to sand an angle on them. So we'll do that in 2 seconds. So there we are, 400 grit. That should be alright. Pressure on it, it's only a piece of dowel supporting this one, so not too much pressure.
Graham was just asking, is there a plan to introduce the metric light pull drive?
No. Well, no, I say no. I've been talking. to the people that make plans, and there is a potential actually, but at the moment it's just talking. Because that's opened up a few other issues that I would like to go metric. Things like threads for light fittings, that sort of thing, because then we could potentially go with tap and dies for light fittings and all that sort of stuff. So there's a few other little bits that could potentially go metric without upsetting too many people. So yes, we're in talks. Right, there we are. So that's, turn that noise off. Sorry, turn the dust extraction off. Right, there we are. There's the pine one. So we'll do a little bit of sanding after we've centered up our lathe, or pretended to center up our lathe. So the worst thing that you can do, frustration hits you, the worst thing you can do is start filing things and adding shims and all those sorts of stuff. That's not the issue. If you've got a center or a lathe that's out of center, what it is, it's always going to be bend in the bed of the lathe. If you can pan back a little bit, you think, so what we have here, we've got a really, especially nowadays, modern lathes, they're really quite heavy. They're designed to be heavy. So whatever floor you have, and it's not like my camera stand there, it's got 3 legs, it's a tripod. This is 4 legs. So whatever the floor you have, the bed is gonna, or the lathe is gonna bed down on all 4 of its legs. So if you've got an uneven floor, that puts a very minute amount of twist on the bed of the lathe. A way to sort that out in the day would be use winding sticks. And winding sticks are just 2 flat sticks you put on the bed, and you adjust your feet until you get those winding sticks parallel with each other. Now we use the centres. We use 2 single pointed centres in each end. So if I use my ring centre there with a single point, I can bring my tailstock up. And we do what we call a kiss test, which is bring those 2 centres close together and adjust my feet until the bed twist is taken out, and that will align the centres up. And that's why you'll find most machines now, most modern machines, will come with feet on there. They're not just feet, they're risers, they're adjustment blocks, so you can take any error out that might be in the floor. So if you're continually moving your lathe around the workshop, think about that. Okay. The same thing happens if you bolt a bench top lathe down to a bench. If the bench top isn't square, isn't dead flat, then you're going to be springing the bed of the lathe. So just have a think about that as well. If you can't get your centres, that's what it'll be. There's a very slight twist in the bed somewhere. There we are. Hopefully that's answered the question for you. Okay, that can come out. So we'll put a sand on that, and then we'll put some paint on those. So, C-jaws and my sanding discs. We'll have the extraction on again, unfortunately. So let's go. I'll start off with a fairly lumpy sanding disc. Just to answer that earlier question, Finn, can you just disconnect that from the tripod, camera from the tripod? Thank you, I'll have it in a minute.
Let's watch the lead.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring you around here to look at my chuck. That's the earlier question, if I can get this in shot. Axminster Evolution SK114. Alright, so they are the same thing. There we go, buddy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Right, dust extraction on. We're going to put a couple of sanding points on our bodies that we've made so far. So this one, we're just going to start simple. We're going to do that. So just a very slight little sanded area. Okay, on this one. that's all it needs to be on that design. On the other one, we'll go slightly bigger. Bigger surface there. Now someone messaged me over the week and they said that my disc is looking a little bit clogged up. Do we know that there's a block that can unblock them? So let me just get one to show you what they are. It says go. So these blocks here, okay, you can see mine's well used. All there for is to unblock your sanding disc. There we are. So basically it's almost like a rubber block. I don't know what material it is, but it's like a bit of rubber. But that's the result. Lily again. Maybe you might be able to find out. Oh my goodness, that's made a bit of a difference.
Any idea when the multi-camera setup's going to happen?
Yep. Well, I'm using mine at the moment for all my remote demos that I do for woodturning clubs around the world. But as a company, we are looking to start things in the new year. Right at the beginning of the new year as well. So after Christmas, we're going to have a little break at Christmas, but then after Christmas, come January, we're going to have the multi-camera set up for all of us, and you're going to get a lot more content as well. You're going to get a lot more hours a week, so you'll be able to gorge on making things. There we are. That's like new, that surface of that sanding disc. So let's do a little bit of airbrushing. Let's get some colour on those, and then we can look at making a head. We're running out of time already. So painting sticks.
Got a quick question here from Alan. He was just saying he's looking to upgrade his dust extractor. Any recommendations?
It depends on the size of your workshop. Now I'm using this the 60E there, so the AC60E. Can we get a shot of the extractor in there? At the moment, that's my small extractor. Obviously the workshop's been extended, so you'll see lurking around to the left hand, I've got a Cyclone, a bigger extractor there. And then the brown cardboard box on the floor contains all my ducting kit, and I've started putting pipe up, 100mm pipe, and that's going to duct to all of my machinery, but that's going to be using the big Cyclone in the corner. At the moment, the AC60 has served me brilliantly through everything that I've been doing, because I've been ducting straight to source, but now I want to duct to several machines. I need something a bit bigger with a little bit more oomph, especially when I start going to things like the planer thicknesser. Machine like I've got there I'm using at the moment is great when we're doing one machine at a time. Want to go bigger machines, I need to go a bigger unit. And a little bit on dust extraction whilst we're doing these, you've got to think about how dust extractors work. And for me, there's three different types. There's your Cyclone, there's your impeller type, and then you've got your vacuum type. If you think of vacuum extractors, more for power tools, things that are enclosed, because vacuum's great when plugged into something. If I had a vacuum connected to my hose here, it's fine right at the nozzle, but as soon as you move away from the nozzle, you lose suction, because there's not a terrific amount of air speed in a vacuum. It's a vacuum. impeller type, the one that I'm using here, that creates a lot of volume, so it creates a lot of airspeed. So that's fantastic for planer thicknesses, for wood turning lathes and things like that. The same as a cyclone, it creates a lot of airspeed. So that's why I tend to go for those types on the lathe, on a planer thicknesser. If I'm plugging my power tools in, I'm going for a vacuum all the time. Alright, so there's quite a big difference. And the size of the machine, that is dictated by how many machines you want to plug into and the volume that you want to shove through the thing. Planer thicknessers, if you're putting meters and meters of boards through a planer thicknesser and you want an extractor for it, you need a big extractor. It's got to cope with all that volume. Alright, and a big collection area as well. So yeah, there's your answer. If you've got a craft machine, I would go with a craft extractor. Obviously it's got to stay within your budget, but again, and workshop size of course. But for us, for lathes, I would go always with an air shifter, an impeller type, a bag system basically, or like I say, in cyclone. Okay. Right, some airbrushing. What colour am I going to do this one? Let's go with green. Green. So we're going to plug in our compressor. So my compressor's on now, so you can hear how quiet that is. Plug and play. So literally got a little quick release system for the airbrush, which is lovely. And then I'm going to put the dust extractor on because I'm not happy with breathing that in the oil bin.
Can you buy new feet from Axminster for a benchtop wood lathe?
For a benchtop
wood lathe?
New feet?
Yeah.
If it's a current model, I'm sure we can do something, yes. It won't be on in the catalogue, it won't be on the web, you'd have to contact after sales. There we are. That's your paint stick in action. It means you don't get stain and paint all over your fingers, and you also don't get fingerprints all over what you're painting, and you can set it to dry. Saying that'll be dry now, so we don't have to worry about that. So we can give it another coat, we can do a bit of sanding. And that was the pine. Are we going to do anything with the oak one? I think we'll just darken it. Move that one right out of the way. Another painting stick. So we've got the bodies made. So I think we've got time just to knock out a couple of heads for those guys. But that can go to one side and dry. Well, they're dry, but I'll just stick them to one side. So we'll quickly do a couple of heads. Changing the chuck, I'm going to go back to my pin jaws. So let's start. Got going to make life difficult for myself, so I use a lot of this, a lot of dowel. So a head for one of those guys. What size are we looking at? So a little bit bigger than that.
Tony was just asking, he has an Axminster compressor. He was just wondering where he can get the fitting to convert it into an airbrush.
They're right. Okay, they're online. They're on our website. Off the top of my head, I won't be able to tell you numbers, and Lily won't be able to find them. So best thing to do there, let us know which compressor you have, and if you've got any fittings at the moment, what they are, and I'll do a little bit of research for you and give you the part numbers. Airline fittings are a nightmare. They're all different sizes. There's male, female. It's just, yeah, they're all over the place. Let's do a couple of heads.
Is the painting sticks the only reason for the hole in the bottom of the pieces?
Yeah. Then again, the painting sticks are the way that I'm able to hold the piece on the lathe to finish the top, and to hold them while painting, all those sorts of things. So it's quite an important hole, quite an important part of the process, really. This is one of the heads. Just taking the size down a little bit. I'll go to a little spindle gouge, speed the lathe up. There we are. Now I'm just going to put a mark in there with a parting tool. So in a minute we'll part that off. There we are, so head number one. Okay, so that's the first part. I won't do the second one because of time. I'll do a hat instead. How much time do I have left in?
55 minutes in.
55 minutes in?
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to just quickly do a hat. We're going to race through this. The reason, someone asked why do I have to limit to 55 to an hour. The reason at the moment is that, and it's only at the moment, the reason at the moment is we're using Facebook, and Facebook limits us to that time. Sorry, Instagram limits us to an hour. It won't always be like this. There we are, a little bit of skew work and we're done on that one. That's it. So there we are, that's our one head. So what we'll need to do next is on the sanding disc again, sand a little flat here. That can then connect to our already turned head. And then next week, Tuesday, we're going to make the hands and the gold in frankincense and myrrh, and look at doing Mary, Joseph and a sheep all in that hour. Okay, so that was a bit of waffle in this one, but there we are. Get cutting, get your wise men made, and you'll join me again next week for the rest of our nativity scene. But you've seen the pictures that we posted out. That's some of my earlier pieces, so look at those pictures. I'm sure it doesn't take too much imagination if you wanted just to crack on and finish a nativity to do that. The sheep might be a little bit more complex, but once you've had a look at the pictures again, you'll work it out, I'm sure. But I'll finish the project for you on Tuesday next week. So again, until Tuesday, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your turning, guys. Thank you for watching and supporting us. I'll see you Tuesday. Bye bye.